And without further ado, what I would love to do now is to welcome the first panel. And we have a great honor this afternoon to welcome Governor John Rwangombwa, who is the governor of the National Bank of Rwanda, who has the great honor and pleasure to have accepted to give to us an opening remark. Please, Governor John, welcome on stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Qamar. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Allow me to say all protocols observed. Welcome to this enlightening panel session on MSME financial literacy and talent development. It is a privilege and honor for me to join esteemed professionals, innovative minds, and distinguished guests from around the globe to open this session that stands at the intersection of financial empowerment and cultivation of talent within the realm of micro, small, and medium enterprises. As the famous Maya Angelou said, I have learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Today, we are all a testament to the remarkable warm welcome accorded to us by our gracious host, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. We are feeling at home, and we thank you for your great hospitality. My appreciation also goes to the esteemed speakers who have generously dedicated their time and knowledge to today's panel, and to you, the participants. For your presence signifies a shared commitment to the growth and prosperity of the MSMEs worldwide. Distinguished guests, as the engine that drives our economic growth, particularly in growing economies, MSMEs stand tall as the backbone of our communities. They are the catalyst for economic diversity, innovation, and job creation. Despite their undeniable importance, however, MSMEs face daunting challenges that threaten their survival and prosperity. Indeed, the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs has highlighted that failure rates for MSMEs range between 50% and 90%, a sobering statistic that cannot be overlooked. These challenges include credit risk, inadequate financial management skills, and a significant degree of informality in their operations, among others. It is here that we confront the pivotal issue of limited literacy among MSMEs, financial literacy among SMEs, an Achilles heel that intertwines with many of the obstacles previously mentioned. This deficiency in financial acumen is not just a gap, it's the cause that is, if left unbridged, can stifle the growth of these crucial enterprises. Reason why it is the focal point of our discussions today. For in enhancing financial literacy, we strengthen each link in the chain, fortifying the entire economic structure. Ladies and gentlemen, we have laid bare the myriad challenges that MSMEs encounter, ranging from high credit risk to lack of financial literacy. Yet, as Helen Keller so eloquently put it, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. This spirit of collaboration is the cornerstone upon which the edifice of financial literacy must be built. The significance of financial literacy, especially for MSMEs, cannot be overstated. It is this literacy that arms these businesses with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate the complexities of their financial operations, empowering them to make informed decisions, access vital funding, and mitigate risk effectively. In light of this, I would like to take a moment to commend the Monetary Authority of Singapore for its unwavering commitment to nurturing MSMEs, particularly in the realm of financial literacy. MS joint venture with the UNDP and IFC is a testament to the power of partnership in designing specialized courses for MSMEs, further underpinning the capacity building and resilience enhancements for these enterprises. Ladies and gentlemen, on a national scale, Rwanda echoes the commitment of MSME literacy. Our own initiatives, such as the National Financial Education Roadmap and the establishment of SME centers by financial service providers, are designed to cultivate a nurturing environment for MSME development. Additionally, a successful cashless campaign by different stakeholders in our country, urging business enterprises to go digital with the support of our development partners, are further evidence of the collective drive to uplift the SME sector. As we engage further in our discussions today, we'll dive deeper into the MSME landscape, probing the challenges and numerous ways through which we can provide solutions. We shall explore strategies for fostering MSME growth through talent development, drawing on our collective expertise as regulators, government agencies, multilateral institutions, education bodies, and other key stakeholders. Distinguished participants, as I conclude, let me express my profound appreciation for the wealth of expertise gathered here, a tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences. It is in meetings such as this that we can truly learn from one another, harnessing our collective wisdom for the benefit of the underprivileged across the world. Let us all engage with fervor in today's discussions. Let's not just exchange knowledge, but commit to the action that will emerge from our insights. Because in the end, it is what we do with what we know that can change the world. I wish you fruitful discussions and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Governor John, for your opening remarks. And now I would like to invite Amy Schutten, Deputy Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, who will be moderating this panel discussion.
Thank you, Governor John Rwangombwa, for your opening remarks and welcoming us to this panel. I'd also like to welcome the rest of my esteemed panel to the stage today. First, we have Kwamina or K. Dukar from the Development Bank of Ghana. Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Qamar, the CEO of the SME Finance Forum. Thank you for joining us. And finally, last but not least, Weina Zhang, Professor Weina Zhang from the NUS Business School, as well as Deputy Director of SGFIN. Thank you. So I think that we can all agree on this panel, one concept and one idea that we all agree on is that we support and want to uplift MSMEs. And so micro, small, and medium enterprises, as Governor John had alluded to, are really the building blocks of every economy. So to give you some numbers behind what he was referring to, it can be up to 90% of the amount of businesses in certain countries, as well as 70% of overall employment. So these are truly staggering numbers if you think about the scale. However, these MSMEs also face significant challenges as well. So according to research from the World Economic Forum, as well as the NUS Business School, two of the top challenges are, one, these MSMEs to stabilize and expand, and two, how they can retain talent. Because when you have a choice of a company to go to, how do you decide to stay at an MSE? What can the MSE itself do to retain that talent? So one of the ways it can do that is through education, which is also one area that all of us can agree on, especially I think Professor Weina as well, being an academic herself. And the IFC, UNDP, and MAS have come together to form a program called the SME Financial Empowerment Program, or SFE for short. It's supported as well by CIIP and GFI in Singapore, managed by Proxtera. And this is an open platform that's specifically designed for MSMEs to empower them to gain financial wellness, gain financial knowledge, so that they can better run their business, they can grow. And so we're proud to announce that as of today, we have 2 new courses for SFE as well. So we welcome participants as well. Proxtera has managed a program and is generously offered free use of these courses as well. So one is advanced concepts in green financing, because sustainability topics, it's not a topic that's talked about a lot for MSMEs, but yet with the amount of regulation that we're facing, with the challenges that we're facing, sustainability is an important factor for all businesses, including MSMEs, to look at. And the second topic will be how businesses can prepare for cross-border transactions. So what are some of the fundamentals and concepts to understand when you're expanding your business to grow internationally? And so we, again, welcome anyone to be able to, in the audience, to be able to take part in those courses. But most specifically, though, MSMEs are the ones that we hope to really be able to do these courses. So in our panel today, so we'll be covering 2 major themes. So one is how can governments, multilateral agencies, and the private sector, how can we collectively come together to support and uplift MSMEs? And 2, how can we come together as well to think of ideas for MSMEs to retain this talent so that these MSMEs can continue to grow and expand. So I'm going to begin right off the bat, starting again with Governor Zhang, and from a central bank perspective, because that's not a typical player that you would think would support an MSME, because central banks normally, they have the mandate of ensuring price stability, financial stability. So where can a central bank come in to also boost the crucial segments like MSMEs?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's good to be answering that question when you're here in Singapore, because there's a lot to learn from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. But going back to your question, of course, one, we need to really focus on our key mandate, primary mandate of economic stability and financial stability, because that is the underlying pillar, foundation of any economic development in a sustained manner. Even the SMEs we are talking about, if you don't do well on economic stability and financial stability, they won't plug in and be able to deliver. So that is key. I think that remains really key mandate, and we have to do well on that. But beyond that, recently, and as I said, learning from our colleagues here, AMS, we've gone out of I wouldn't call it a comfort zone, the main mandate of the central banks, but our main focus, and started doing other things that can support economic development, especially the MSMEs, as you said. Because at the end of the day, to ensure financial stability, we need to have actors within the economy, as clients of the financial sector that are sustainable themselves. So we came in as a central bank from 2021. We introduced a new department called Financial Sector Development and Inclusion. And part of this focus of this department is MSME financing, MSME literacy. We just launched, as I said in my few remarks, financial sector education roadmap, or literacy roadmap, that we are leading with other key stakeholders. So we understand the survey that has been done, lack of financial literacy is the key hindrances to MSME development and understanding the financial products that are there, understanding their responsibilities. So we're really working on developing a literacy campaign across the sectors. And we've gone even further, started with schools. We have what we call BNR Engage, the National Bank of Rwanda Engage. So we start with education at secondary schools and university level, directly to make sure we are generating economic actors that are aware and informed of what is expected of them. So again, working with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, just this June, we launched a project called RISE in Kigali that is focusing on supporting MSMEs to create their data around them that they can use to engage with financial institutions, but also through this product we're able to understand the gaps and support these MSMEs in filling the gaps, especially in financial education, business education. So yes, we've gone beyond our key mandate, though we still know that the primary responsibility of us is financial stability and economic stability, but there's a lot of initiative that we're already engaged in, and we're happy that we are partnering with our host here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's wonderful to hear that, of course, while you're focusing on your mandates of the financial stability, that you also want to concurrently be able to grow talent, even from, you said, from secondary school level. So that's wonderful to hear. So if I may turn now to Kay, from a development bank perspective now, from DBG, how does DBG support and grow MSMEs as well?
I think Governor John has really set the scene, and similarly in Ghana, we have a central bank that's really focused on promoting innovation and impact, and they do that through several ways, and we work very closely with them. They promote policy advocacy, dialogue, stakeholder collaboration, which is key to all that we do, and we work very closely to them in terms of building what we call regulatory sandboxes. Because without that regulatory sandbox, you can't experiment. You can't do things that, the current legislation will find it difficult to accommodate. And so being open-minded in terms of that regulatory sandbox allows us to do things that are pretty advanced at the moment. One of the key things that we're working with at the moment is, again, in conjunction with the Monetary Authority of Singapore and our central bank, is working with Proxtera. And what are we trying to do there? We're trying to build effectively a platform that not only supports an SMEs in terms of having clear understandings of what is required in order to, let's put it bluntly, to get a loan, but that starts not just with the financing, it starts with the education. And so the key pillar of that is, the first pillar of that is the education pillar. And I think at the moment we have nearly 5,000. It just started, but we have nearly 5,000 SMEs who are going through the pillar one. They're then building through to what we call trusted credentials, and we'll spend some time talking about that later, before they even get a loan. And so for us, financing becomes the icing on the cake. It's more about changing behavior, changing mindset, the willingness, not just the capability to pay, but the willingness to understand. And we're working in collaboration with our central bank in that respect, and also our wholesale commercial banks. And the commercial banks are also looking to put together common underwriting terms. And it's really important that you codify those common underwriting terms so that everybody speaks the same language. The banks speak the same language as the SMEs, and that huge disconnect that happens in many countries between the banks making the loans and the SMEs. We're trying to eradicate that. So those are some of the key things that we're working on at the moment in Ghana. And it's all supported, I would say, by a really supportive central bank. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's also interesting to hear you say as well that it has to be a structural change. So in terms of getting the right partners on board, and also being able to be nimble and innovative when possible with the creation of sandboxes, to be able to quickly be able to experiment or to test things out, and then from that be able to innovate as well. So now I'd like to turn to a multilateral agency. So coming to SME Finance Forum, what are the key activities that an agency like the IFC and the SME Finance Forum can do to help MSMEs grow, especially cross-border?
Thanks, Amy. So let me start with a few stats, to set the context. And let me start with something you mentioned on sustainability before I dive into your question. So there is no net zero without SMEs. SMEs contribute between 50 to 70% of GHG emissions. So I think it really has to be at the center of the agenda. And regarding the SME finance gap, we publish, I've seen the World Bank Group, we publish MSME finance gap analysis, and that has gone from $4.5 trillion in around 2016 to $5.2 trillion globally.
Oh, wow.
And now we're about to publish a new report, and it's not out yet, but I can share with you, it's looking more like $5.7 trillion. So on one hand, the SME finance gap is going north. And I also wanted to put it into context. The top 500 companies in the world contribute to 40% of the global GDP. And when you look at the top 50 companies, they have 25% of the market cap. So you're seeing where the market is headed, and I think we need to scale solutions. And that brings us to a multilateral like IFC on what we need to do. So I think there are three layers of activities that we conduct. First is more around investment and risk mitigation mechanisms, enabling that for the market. So as IFC, our portfolio is around $19 billion of MSME finance that we've enabled. That's our portfolio right now. But when 80% of that is with the financial sector. So we work with the financial sector, like our program on cross-border you mentioned. We recently launched a global supply chain finance program of $1 billion, giving funded and risk mitigation facilities to banks. We work with rail sector. We have a program called GTSF. That's another $1 billion program that works with large corporations to really allow suppliers for emerging markets to come, and that allows them to go cross-border. And then we have our disruptive technologies department, and we do close to $1.2 billion of MSME finance in fintechs and tech firms. So I think that's the finance part of that what we need to do. And we also do risk mitigation, like we have a small loan guarantee program. Especially in fragile markets, it becomes even harder to do SME finance. So that's where our SLGP program comes in. So that's the investment side of it. The second is around the capacity building of the actors, because it's not just the SMEs that need capacity, it's the intermediaries that also need capacity building. So we do capacity building of regulators, so like credit reporting, secure transactions, insolvency regimes, open finance and open banking licensing regimes of digital players. So we work on the regulatory side of capacity building. That's close to $150 odd million of projects that we are having right now. Then we work with the private sector. We work with the financial sector. So we build capacity of the financial sector to do SME finance and take them cross-border. And we also work with the rail sector, large corporations. So the GTSF programs comes with a capacity building program of SMEs who want to go global. So that's another $180 million of projects that we are conducting globally in building capacity of the actors in the middle. And the third layer, so first is the investment risk mitigation, second is really capacity building of the intermediaries, and then it comes to the real beneficiaries, that's the SMEs. And there needs to be capacity building done at that level also. So through SME Finance Forum, for example, we have more than 5,000 online resources in terms of knowledge building. We have nearly 500 different videos on different topics. We convene stakeholders and we convey knowledge. So we are a platform. SME Finance Forum was built as a G20 initiative. It's managed by IFC. So we do a lot of knowledge building, knowledge collateral, tools availability. That's one. Then within IFC and the World Bank Group, we have capacity advisory services. That is, for example, we're working with SME, the GTSF programs comes with the capacity building programs of the suppliers. So we do capacity building of international suppliers who are internationally bound. We as SME Finance Forum have networks like Global Linker, Opportunity Network. There are global platforms that house SMEs, and we allow them to connect to financial sector so the client base of the financial sector and the rail sector can go global. So I think that's the other aspect of capacity building at the grassroots level that is needed. And I just want to end by saying something that there is, I think capacity building of SMEs is not a social service. I think we need to understand that. And the moment institutions are able to understand that, they do it right. So there are many examples of institutions doing this. But one of the clients I was working with has 1 million SMEs. And they said, my wallet share of my portfolio where I do capacity building is 20% higher. And the NPL of that portfolio is 50% lower. So there is a business case of capacity building, opportunity profiling, and enabling SMEs to succeed cross-border. And that's coming out as a big theme. So we have a supply chain community of practice where we bring in all the community players and help SMEs think through their international and growth plans. So I think these are the 3 levels of activities that we need to do. The only thing I want to end by saying is we do $19 billion. I'm sure many other multilaterals put together do another 30, 40, $50 billion. The gap is $5.7 trillion. So we really need to scale the efforts. And that's what's lacking in the market. We all run in our own lanes. The field is much bigger than the football. So I think we really need to scale the efforts and synergize and connect the dots better. So thank you. Thank you.
Wow, Qamar. So I was actually struck by some of the numbers that you started off with in terms of the financing gap reaching almost $6 trillion globally, and then some of the efforts that IFC and SME Finance Forum do in terms of investment and then capacity building, both in terms of its actors as well as at the MSME level. It's really heartening to hear that we have multilateral agencies contributing to that effort as well. So now I want to focus a little bit on a specific issue facing MSMEs, which is sustainability. So when we look at MSMEs, what are some of the sustainability challenges that they face? And what are some existing market tools as well as financing that can help in that regard? If I may turn to Professor Weina.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for the question. So it is really good to hear all the perspectives and then now come to, the real challenges faced by MSMEs on a daily basis. I think that on their mind, they are still considering business and profitability is the priority. And we cannot undermine this kind of consideration. And now, as the global trends moving for decarbonization and sustainability, that means they're facing even double challenges about how to really make make their business sustainable in terms of environment impact, in terms of the social consideration of their employees, customers, and suppliers. So I would say that MSMEs are facing tremendous amount of challenges. So they really need a lot of help. And that's why we need a lot of players to come together in terms of government support and in terms of the grants and subsidies. And I think that the training is also important. So coming from development banks, IFCs, and various institutions coming together to build the educational opportunities, especially for the MSMEs leadership. I think the leaders has to be aware that this is the trend that cannot be stopped. So they can hide their head under the sand and pretend that the things will just go usual, and that is the wrong mentality. So I think that training and the capacity building has to start from the leadership. And this is what I think that Singapore is really commendable of starting the training on the director level, as well as all these chief sustainability officers. And they need to be aware what are the options out there, especially in terms of financing opportunities, because now is the time that the governments are giving out a lot of goodies. And this is the time that you need to hear and to understand just by filling a few forms. You're getting a lot of hundred thousands of fundings and at subsidized rates. I think this is really a golden opportunity for a lot of this SME leadership to consider to start. And the other kind of skill set is needed is sustainability skill set. Sustainability is a very big name. And we really need to put the multidisciplinary training together for this kind of skill sets. And it's not coincidental. It has to be intentional. And that's why in Singapore, we set up, deliberate and training programs at the various levels. We have master level in sustainable and green finance, and we have this executive training for all these corporate leaders and the managers. And just within last 1 year, I have the opportunity to train up more than 1,000 executives from all over the world. And this is a demand that I have never seen in my lifetime. I have been so busy, just to conducting the workshops and sharing what is available sustainable financing options out there. I think that these are the two, main things that we really want to see: the skill up, the leadership training, as well as the specific talents in sustainability who can understand all the, business terminologies, as well as the latest development in sustainable finance.
Thank you, Weina. So it seems like some common themes, again, here are public support, as well as just again, a reason why you've been busy, knowing the education and training options that are out there as well. So if I come back now to Governor Zhang, and in terms of now, we've talked a bit about training, we've talked a bit about education. Now if we go into, so that's upskilling the MSMEs. But if we're looking at the MSMEs and we want to now focus on how do they retain key talent, so especially in a fast-growing economy like Rwanda, what are some of the aspects that you've seen in terms of how we can MSMEs can retain this talent?
Yeah, thank you. I think I build on what the professor has just said. It's and I look at it from two angles for them to be able to retain talent. One is on creating a critical mass of the needed skills within a given country. So I think the biggest challenge is the scarcity of the needed skills. And so they keep on shining from one to another, from one MSME to another. This fails, they go to a new one, fails. So there's that need, and what we are discussing here, the different efforts, is really to train and create the necessary skills to support the MSME. So that is number one. That is really critical. And then number two is for the MSME themselves to embrace formality in their business, in their operations. And as you embrace formality, you embrace modern ways of governance. And so at least they need to ensure sustainability and growth within themselves. So an employee that is working with you and is seeing the future with you will be encouraged to stay with you and grow with you to greater heights. So it's one is creating the critical mass, but also the SMEs themselves to really move to to sustainable ways of doing business. And that is what we are saying here. What do we need to do as key stakeholders to support them to move from the informality that dominates most of our SMEs to formality, to embracing digital means of doing business, and at least the employees will see win-win by staying with a particular SME. Thank you.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense as well. And of course, as an MSME grows, to embrace the structure, embrace the formality, as you mentioned. So Kay, if I may turn to you as well, can you add, so what are some, you spoke about some tools and processes. Can you add, is there anything else in terms of assistance and tools that MSMEs can tap on? I think we've all been able to refer to some, and expanding on that, what are some other ways, and you can see DBG and in your experience can help grow and retain talent as well?
No, thank you. It's actually, for us, maybe a little bit blunt, but the way to keep talent is to make sure that you're growing with your staff's expectations and your staff's objectives in terms of building wealth. And when we talk about sustainable prosperity, I remember something that Sapnendu told me a couple of years ago. There's really no company that, was founded with the intention of staying small and medium-sized. And so we've got to remember that you have to grow in order to retain talent. You have to grow in order to retain ambitious people. And part of that, as Professor said, is about continuous learning. And in our organization, we have continuous learning. And one of the things that we found out that even though we lend out a lot of money, we've lent out about $1 billion so far in the last couple of years, local currency, that is, not Singapore dollars. But the key thing is we spent so much more time on capacity building and training people to make sure that they understand their business and to formalize the institution, because that gives them the protection and the processes to grow and to scale. And so that's a key thing that we realize is absolutely vital in terms of building our SMEs. The other part of the equation is also making sure that as we talk to our partners and we collaborate and we develop, and even as we train our SMEs, we do not support programs that do not have an exit to the market. Because all that does, it creates a dependency and it creates this vicious cycle. So there is a place for grants and there is a place for concessional loans, particularly in terms of when there are crises, etc. But all that has to be accompanied with a long-term plan, and we insist on that as we work with our partners. It must be accompanied with a long-term plan to exit to sustainable prosperity. And if we embrace the word sustainable, that means that you're competing in the market and you're competing on an equal playing ground. And if we do not build that mindset into our SMEs, that particularly in emerging markets, we will never get out of this vicious cycle of dependency. And so that's what the key things that we focus on in terms of training. Not just technical skills, but changing mindset and behavior.
So I completely agree with you, Kay. And going back to what you opened with in terms of growing with your staff and growing your company. So that's the only constant in life, isn't it? So change and hopefully positive and upward growth. So Qamar, if I may turn to you now, can you add how else can MSMEs evolve and attract as well as maintain talent from your experience?
So I'll start by unbundling this a little bit, because this is not one segment we're talking about. We have micro, we have informal, we have cottage industry, we have women entrepreneurs, we have very small enterprises, we have small enterprises, and we have medium enterprises. So I think we need to really understand in an unbundled way what is needed where. And where the market failure is the most is in the microfinance space. 90 to 95% of the micro enterprises never graduate. They remain micro. Same is the case with very small enterprises. Nearly 80 to 85% don't really graduate. And we look at the cottage industry, similar, 80 to 85% don't graduate. And the common thing we have seen across that is that they don't have the people capacity to be able to graduate from a skill standpoint. And I think that's where I think what we need to do is the training and capacity building and attracting talent and retaining talent really depends on the segment you're in. So I just want to kind of put a bit of a classification around how we look at the problem. Now, one of the things I've seen, and I've interacted with over 1 million SMEs in many markets, a lot of them don't think, long term. They think till the next week is the maximum. How are we going to survive that? So building long-term capabilities, long-term value proposition is not something on top of their mind. And that's where actors who are working with them, they have a responsibility to play. And I've seen very interesting trend of, especially the financial sector, offering non-financial services in addition to financial services. So you look at Bank Itaú in Brazil, you look at NetBank in South Africa, you look at Attijari Bank in Morocco, you look at DBS in Singapore. There's many examples where non-financial services, and some of the institutions I have seen gone as high as launching SME TVs. So actually they have SME televisions with tutorials, they have industry mentors. So I think part of the responsibility is not just on the SMEs, but also the people who serve SMEs. And I think SMEs, what they need to do is take advantage of those offerings, which I sometimes feel they don't do enough. So I think that's what I feel SMEs need to play a bigger role in looking at that pie. And then I do feel building a value proposition for the people they hire, building a brand for themselves, building on their own core strengths. Because if you're working for a Microsoft or working with somebody like us, I mean, it's a sea of people that work there. But they're nimble, they're able to offer value proposition which is much more real. They can walk away with learning which are more holistic. So I think they need to play on their own strengths when they acquire talent and retain talent. So I think from that standpoint, I think they need to be much more mindful on their people strategies. It's not enough to have a business strategies. It's important to have people strategies. And I think that's another aspect. And the last thing I want to say is SMEs sometimes feel they're alone in this puzzle. And they're alone in the sea of vultures around them. But they're not alone. I think especially if I look at the fintech role in the SME space, fintech contributed to 3 to 4% of SME lending. It's around 8 to 9% right now. So they are significantly coming into this place. And I would encourage SMEs to actually partner with fintechs, leverage fintech offerings, leverage industry offerings, so that they're able to scale up and scale up at pace. So these are some initial thoughts from what I've learned working across markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and especially for reminding us that it's a people strategy as well for growth. Professor Weina, may I turn to you for the final comment as well?
Sure.
For helping MSMEs to retain talent.
Yeah, so I think that we have all heard about, the standardization, the place for the leadership to make the clear commitment, and then your staff will really feel that you are, walking the talk. And the second thing we have mentioned is the mentorship by Qamar, right? I think the mentorship is extremely important when you are spending time on people and they will see it and they will be appreciating it. So what I want to add on is this concept called social capital. And I think that social capital is extremely valuable, but it's so intangible that sometimes we just neglect it. And I think that a lot of millennials nowadays are very purpose-driven. They come to the job not just for the money. They come for a purpose. They come for a mission. They come for ambition. So I think that this is the part that we really want to invest in them and give them the opportunity to grow. And we need to build the trust in them and to give them the pathways to succeed. I want to give one simple example. I think most of you probably have heard about Jack Ma. Jack Ma is the starter, at the time, many years ago. But think about his background. He's not a tech-savvy person, but he started Alibaba. And he actually motivated more than 10 engineers who are so talented just to work together with him. He's actually an English teacher, if you check out his background. How did he manage to do that and to grow the company until to this success? It's really about his trust, his relationship building, and he's motivating all these engineers to work together for a big vision. And these people spend time with him and willing to work so hard, not looking at the profits per se, but looking at a dream, a vision that he has to communicate with others. So I think that if we can have this kind of leadership in the company, I think that is the bright future for this type of enterprises.
Thank you, Professor Weina, and much agreed. Social capital is key. So if I can wrap up, I think the two main themes that we heard today is one, collaboration is key, as Governor Zhang pointed out in his opening, both public-private, multilateral agencies, and with other entities. And second, education or training is key. I think all of us in some way are all contributing as well to educational programs that we can use and we can develop specifically to help MSMEs succeed and grow. So thank you for everyone. Thank you for my fellow panelists for joining me today. And thank you to everyone here.